Hi, everybody. I'm Mary Barbara Hanna, and of course, I'm with,
And Frost.
and we are the Frost Advisory. I'd like to start our session out today by giving a big shout out to our amazing social media manager, Lexi Mason. She's been doing a great job keeping our Facebook page updated, helping us get our videos onto YouTube. She has even started a LinkedIn page for us, which is very exciting as we grow and expand. Today, our topic is servant leadership. Anne and I chose this topic because it is President's Day and thinking about leadership that we've experienced, both, Anne and I have experienced, and the different kinds of leadership and what we think is, and not only do we think it, but research plays it out, servant leadership being the very best type of leadership. But we'll talk a little bit more about what it is compared to authoritarian leadership and give you some things, some food for thought, as we like to do. So, Anne, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, I when we were putting this topic together, of course, all this is sometimes when we put these topics together and start talking about the content, it becomes therapeutic for me.
Both of us, yes, for sure.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about, okay, servant leadership, we'll get into some more details about that, but it's true, Mary Barbara, I think if that's one we can aspire to put into practice, that's where we need to be. So conversely, if it's servant leadership, let's think about the opposite of that, more traditional leadership, the authoritarian style of leadership. So, as I was thinking about that, and I encourage everybody out there to think about a time maybe when they had a leader that was all command and control and authoritarian, and it's my way or the highway, as Dr. Phil might say, how did that make you feel? All right. And when I think about how it made me feel, I was a number. I was here to do my job. I was told that on many occasions. Oh, here's a good one. You're lucky you have a job.
Yeah.
I was told that. And it's like, okay. So over time, and I think this is what we need to think about, no matter what type of leadership you're talking about, you need to think about that longer term impact. So
Yes.
in all honesty, I was told you are lucky you've got this job.
Mhm. I think, Anne, if I can interject for 1 minute, I think everybody is sort of raised, the baby boomers. They're, like this isn't a history lesson, but you do have to go back to essentially the Industrial Revolution of the late 1800s to understand, and then hitting the Great Depression in 1929. There's a lot, the people that Aunt and I were raised by, and those people who were raised by their parents were growing up in a time when work would have been difficult to find and it wasn't easy getting a job. And so people really literally could say to you, "You're lucky to have this job," because you were, because so many people were unemployed. And so, looking and there is joblessness today, and we are dealing with COVID, it's true. But the traditional leadership that we're talking about today stems from this idea before unions, when people were working, 12-hour days, 5, 6, 7 days a week, literally, and we're lucky to have work. So this stems from pretty much, I think, an old worn out version of what leadership was at a time when people could behave that way and get away with it. And research has shown and it continues to show that there's modifications that have taken place and need to take place because our workforce has totally changed from what it was 100 years ago. So
Well,
that's my little input there.
the workforce and the work itself.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
um, with that in mind, that it's like, what are some of the impacts of being told you're just here to do your job? You're lucky you have a job. And to me, what happened for me was, it's like I just pulled out that job description and had it in front of me, and it's like, here's what I was hired to do. No more, no less. That was my attitude. Stay under the radar. Just do what's on my job description. There's no initiative taking. There's no trying to exceed expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just a number. My input was not valued. I wasn't asked any questions that would allow me to be creative or feel like I was making a real contribution. So,
Or to even keep you at that place of employment,
Correct.
ultimately.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, retention becomes an issue. You're always having to deal with turnover. And, the research shows that the cost of retraining a new workforce is how many times higher than just trying to keep the workforce you got going. I think it's like
Yeah.
3 or 4 times.
Astronomical. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, it's just kind of snowballs. And it's like, we can solve all your problems. No, would never say that, but it's like, I don't, and maybe that's me just being naive. It's like, why can't other people see that if you invest a little time and energy in the people doing the work, yeah, it's going to take time, a little bit more cash for their development. We need to think bigger picture here. It's an investment in the future and the success of your organization. So when we do have a sense, and that's what I think servant leadership uh, brings to bear, is that when we do have um, that attitude of I'm taking care of the people doing the work, then they'll start seeing results in those retention, performance, productivity, profitability, all that kind of stuff. So by knowing where we fit in, how our work matters, how it connects to the vision, the mission of the organization, and having a sense that, hey, I'm really contributing to that. It's like, what's not to love about that in an employee? Somebody that, will take initiative, exceed expectations. I ask you, what?
I'd like to know the mission of the little dog on the screen here. This little puppy with his
Oh,
pals.
well,
What's his mission?
I put together this because I thought, well, we need somebody that can carry that load of making sure all the people, no matter how diverse they are,
Yeah.
diversity comes a different set of personal and practical needs. And so we need somebody that is willing to carry that.
I think it's a great picture. I just find it adorable. And I do love that it's, just very different animals and birds and what have you. I mean, just all across the board there, and
Uh,
that they would have significantly different needs.
well, and that's the thing with, I think going back to the a difference between traditional and servant leadership is sometimes traditional leaders just paint everybody with the same brush.
Yeah, you're right.
It's, okay, I'll attend to your personal needs. And by the way, here they are. I'll tell you what, we're going to do this all the same. And then, if you haul me into a court of law, you can't say I didn't
Oh my
attend to your
God.
personal
That's
needs. Here it
funny.
is. Whereas servant leadership, that investment of time and energy and resources in understanding, being keenly attentive to
Mhm.
his or her employees or team members, to know that everybody is different. There will be some commonality, of course, but there's going to be a lot of differences too. So I need to be aware of what those are as I assign tasks, delegate work, you know, put in with other members to create this team, to work on that project, whatever shape or form that looks like. I need to be aware of what those differences are. So, but I have a couple of other slides I want to show you that kind of summarizes some differences between traditional and servant leadership. So as we move on, you will see, everybody should be familiar with this guy at the top of the pyramid. Obviously, this guy's the leader. He's not very happy. And he's taking care of himself and his senior leaders first before he addresses those personal and practical needs of his frontline team members. So we're all probably familiar with that. Whereas servant leadership, we're flipping it on its head. As you can see clearly, the front line, the people doing the work, are the ones that he's lifting up, the ones that he's paying attention to, making sure they're taken care of before his senior leadership or himself. So that's kind of a broad stroked comparison between the two. Another way to look at, pardon the pun, traditional or servant leaders is where they put their focus. So for traditional leadership, it is command and control. You're here to do a job. This is the way I want you to do it. I don't need your input. And oh, by the way, do not question my judgment about why I've chosen to do it this way. And again, you're lucky you have your job. Employees are the tools to get things done. So I don't need to worry about what your needs are or concerns are or what ideas you might have. And it's all about my success as the leader, my status, and my level of achievement. Again, um, you need to think about the lasting impact of this. Whereas traditional leaders have a tendency to keep people down, servant leadership, on the other hand, lifts people up. So you could see inspire and equip. People know what their expectations are, how they fit into the vision and mission, and they have the tools they need to get the job done. Employees then are the resources, not the tools in this situation, and it's the focus is all about the people doing the work. Any comments, questions, or concerns?
I'm concerned at the size of these glasses. That's a really big face. Um, no, I think, it comes down to, I think back to work that I've done and the blend of leaders that I have worked for. Certainly, I've worked for traditional leaders, and that was typically found in more of the blue collar work that I would have done. More particularly back in college when I worked during the summer jobs, we really were just bodies showing up, and they were, paying us for the summer, and then we all went back to school. And what is the purpose in investing in that person? They're not coming back. They're just here for the summer. Um, but then I was thinking of a time I worked for a man who truly was a servant leader, and when he eventually passed away from cancer, the loss was so devastating, so great, and felt so deeply in the organization that they had a little garden put in and a tree and a plaque with his name and
Aw,
just a way to remember this person. And he was the kind of man that would walk around and say hello to everybody anytime he was in the building. And he knew everybody's name. He knew what, and this was, we call it like how it is when you're working in a nonprofit. Sometimes there's an umbrella group. This was Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries. And then there were lots of little organizations, and we were all in one building. And he was the head of Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries. And then I worked for a little subgroup on a different, a grant underneath all that. Literally sat in the basement in a corner of this building. You know how nonprofits are. But he didn't, like I said, I only met the man a few times, but he always remembered my name. He knew what my job was, and he would ask after me and how my job was going and was I comfortable down here, blah, blah. So there really is, that lasting impact is that was 20 years ago, and I still remember him. And I remember how he made me feel.
I
I
think
still
that's
remember the traditional leaders and how they made me feel, to your point.